Good evening, everyone.
That's right.
Thank you for being here. If you are on the outside, we invite you to come on the inside. We are about to get started. I know some of you might have been wondering about the ranked choice voting training, and we do have some materials outside on the table, registration table, which explains more about ranked choice voting. Unfortunately, our team that was going to lead the training got delayed. So if you want information beyond what the materials will offer you, let us know, and we can provide that information to you afterwards. Because this is a very important year for elections in DC. And if you're unclear, uncertain, confused about how this process works, we are happy to help you to figure it out. So once again, good evening and welcome to Washington Latin Public Charter School. My name is Peter Anderson, and I have the privilege of being the head of schools and CEO here at Latin. And on behalf of our students, faculty, and community, thank you for being here tonight. We're gathered for a conversation that matters to every family in every ward of this city. Will my child have access to an excellent education? Washington Latin is honored to host this forum alongside our co-sponsors, My Brother's Keeper, the National Charter Collaborative, DC Bilingual Public Charter School, Education Forward DC, the DC Special Education Cooperative, and the DC Center for Strong Public Schools Action Fund. Together, we represent and pave. Together, we represent the breadth of DC's education community, charter and traditional public schools, students with disabilities and English learners, Black and brown young men, and bilingual families. We don't always agree on every policy, but we're united in one conviction. Every student in every ward deserves an excellent education.
That's right.
We meet at a moment of consequence for Washington, D.C. Our city is changing. Families are being displaced. And in the middle of this change, there are children, our children, who need schools that work and leaders who will fight for their futures. The next mayor will shape education in this city for years to come. Tonight, you will hear candidates address critical questions. How will they support Black and brown young men who face disproportionate barriers? How will they ensure students with disabilities receive the services they're entitled to? How will they make quality education accessible in every neighborhood? How will they support our educators? These aren't abstract policy questions. They're about children we know by name. Here at Washington Latin, we are a classical education school. We believe in rigorous inquiry, enduring ideas, and preparing young people to be thoughtful, engaged citizens. Tonight is an expression of that mission. Democracy requires informed deliberation, diverse perspectives, and the courage to ask hard questions. This forum is not a debate where candidates score points. It's a conversation where we hear from those who want to lead us about how they will serve the common good. So at this point, I'm actually going to invite our lead co-sponsor for this event from My Brother's Keeper, Mr. Brunel Home.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right, so tonight I have the privilege of standing before you on behalf of My Brother's Keeper DC and our incredible coalition of co-sponsoring organizations. Before I say anything else, I definitely want to say thank you to Peter Anderson and the entire Washington Latin community for opening your doors. Can we get a shout out to Washington Latin? This is such a fitting home for this conversation for a school that's long believed that every child in the city deserves an extraordinary education regardless of their zip code. So thank you to the Washington Latin team. Let's talk about why we're here, right? When we think about the work of My Brother's Keeper, and for those who do not know, This is sort of part two of a couple of candidate forums that have been going on this week. This one, we want to take a specific lens to issues and challenges related to, and opportunities related to boys and young men of color in the education system here in Washington, D.C. So when we think about My Brother's Keeper, which is a whole effort to improve life outcomes for our young men, I've sat across from too many young men who are brilliant, capable, hungry for opportunity, but who've been let down by a system that was never designed for them. And I've seen what happens when we close the achievement gap early, when we invest in literacy, when we keep young people connected to school and connected to community. And I think we've all seen what happens when we don't, right? So tonight is about having an opportunity to speak to our city's future leaders, current and future leaders, and we're not here for talking points. We're here for commitments. We want to make sure that the folks who are in this room and the folks watching online, we do have the live stream going, or have an opportunity to pay attention to these commitments that are made, plans that are mentioned, perspectives that are lifted up. But now it's my distinct honor to introduce the man who will be guiding the conversation this evening, Victor Reynoso, who has played many roles across the K-12 and higher education ecosystems, but probably for the purpose of this conversation, the most consequential chapter is the fact that he's DC's very first deputy mayor for education, right? So when we actually transitioned to the mayoral control system, he led the way overseeing that effort and the city's billion-dollar education budget, as well as the largest capital investment in public buildings in DC history. He's also served as a senior advisor for Georgetown University, an elected school board member, and most recently as global director of education at Amazon, and currently now is entrepreneur in residence at Learner Studio. He doesn't really need an introduction in education spaces, but we're deeply honored to have him here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Victor Reynoso.
Thank you. All right. I know that we've got a tight agenda, so I will try to get us going quickly. And as Bernal said, this forum is anchored in the Coalition's shared commitment to educational equity, with particular attention to boys and young men of color. And that frame applies across every question here tonight. And in terms of format, just a reminder that the candidates will deliver a 3-minute opening statement, and then they'll get an opportunity to each answer the same set of questions. They'll have 90 seconds per question, and we've got a timekeeper ready to help keep track of where we are. And I think you all know that one of the things that the district voters care about is how good you will be at stewarding resources. One of those resources is time. So we expect you to, give us a preview into how good you're going to be at marshaling resources by helping us stay as close to possible on track. With that as a frame, we're going to begin with candidate opening statements. Bernal, was there an order that we're going in, or are we going straight down the table? So you all are going to share that mic. And
We've done it before, no worries.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Are we starting on the end on this end?
Which end are we starting from?
I think just let's go here that way. Yeah,
Victor's like, let's start.
just from me to the next person.
All right.
Right.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Janice Lewis George. I am a third-generation Washingtonian. I was actually born and raised 2 blocks up the street from here. And one of the most special moments for me is that I am standing in the exact room that I started my educational career. This elementary school is the elementary school, Rudolph Elementary, that nurtured me. And it was my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. McCoy, who saw something in me that I did not see in myself, and asked me to be the mistress of ceremony for every Rudolph Elementary thing that we had here. And so I remember little me saying, "Hi, I am Janice Lewis. Welcome to Rudolph Elementary." So it is a special moment for me to come in here and say, I am Janice Lewis George, and I'm running for mayor. That is what education does. And my teacher taught me one thing. She said, education will open doors for you. And education is the one thing that no one can take away from you. So absorb all of it. And so here I am, feeling strongly about that for all students, right? That we deserve an education champion in our mayor who is going to prioritize making sure that all of our students, no matter whether they are in DC public school or DC public charter schools, have access to quality and excellent education and schools and programming. And I have shown that over the last couple of years. I care so deeply about education because of my story. I went to Rudolph Elementary here, but I ended up going to Deal for junior high school. And I tell people that I remember getting on that E2 Friendship Heights bus on Missouri Avenue and driving across Military Road. And for me, that was the first time I experienced what inequity can look like based on the zip code that you were in. And it's what made me be an advocate for education. Another full circle moment is because of that, I decided to run for State Board of Education member and serve as a student representative, where I sat on the board with Victor Reynoso when he was on the school board and I was a student representative. So I care deeply about education. I have fought for all of our schools through legislation, through the Safe Routes to School Act, which I fought to make sure all of our schools had traffic safety around it. I did it the same way through digital equity and learning. I have shown up to every oversight hearing that I can about education and been a very staunch voice for that oversight work. And today I want to talk to you about how I have shown up not only for our schools here, whether it was making sure Bria had a permanent home in Ward 4, or Truesdale had a swing space close to home. For me, it's about being on the ground for our students. And it's this moment, it means standing up to this Trump administration and protecting all of our families from the horror of ICE that we have experienced. But it also means taking this education system that we are so proud of, that we have built, and taking it to the next level. And so for me, that means closing literacy gaps. That means addressing our absenteeism problem. That means making sure that we have a proactive approach to how we address students with disability needs, and not a reactive approach based on lawsuits, but a real approach that makes sure that we are focusing on those students. It's about supporting our educators, amplifying our teachers' voices, but our parents and our student voices too. So I look forward to this conversation this evening about how we take education in DC to the next level under my mayoralship. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Yaida Ford. I am a civil rights trial lawyer in the District of Columbia. I represent DC families and parents, particularly and children, whose students have been abused in our DC public school system, in addition to police misconduct and some other capacities where I represent parents of students who have suffered from police violence as well. I'm running for mayor because there has been zero accountability in our educational system when it comes to parents who have grievances against DCPS or against public charter. I've litigated against public charter as well. And it goes all the way to the top. We've had our complaints about abuse, and I'll give you some examples so you understand the types of abuse that I'm talking about that's happening right here in Washington, DC, in our schools. In one case, I had a child come home with a broken femur. She's a nonverbal, wheelchair-bound child. There was no incident report. The parent was not given any indication that her child had been harmed at school. Currently in litigation with that case. Another child was locked in a cabinet. She has complex intellectual disabilities. She was locked in that cabinet. That was a case where we did have an incident report. Thankfully, she was banging on the cabinet to get let out. We had another child who was slapped in his face by his teacher. This is a nonverbal autistic child. Another case, child was picked up from school, busted lip. No incident report, no nothing. And all the cases that I'm telling you about, they're currently in litigation, and no one was fired. Not a teacher, not a teacher's aide, no one. And these are the types of incidents that I've seen on the rise since our schools have been under mayoral control. They've been under mayoral control since Adrian Vinty. We've had a chancellor appointed since that time. In my cases, the chancellor was notified about everything. All the cases did absolutely nothing. So as mayor, I'd like to explore the end of mayoral control, and to empower our student board representatives, our SBO representatives. They have a voice, they don't have power. And we need to change that and reevaluate that. And as a civil rights trial lawyer, I have a track record of winning cases against the district and the federal government. But as you will hear today, there's just not enough of me to take these cases. Success is a two-edged sword, because the more I win the cases, the more phone calls I get from parents and families that don't know what happened to their child. But then there are so many barriers that they're facing within DC. They shouldn't need a lawyer to figure out what happened to their kid. But that is the result of failed government under this council and under this mayor. So I'm running for mayor to change that. I know I'm running out of time, and I got a little bit left. So in the name of stewardship, I'm going to pass the mic along.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Vincent Orange, and it is really an honor and a privilege to be here this evening. Education is very, very near and dear to my heart. I and my family, I have 7 sisters and 2 brothers, and I was the first one to go to college. Come from an extremely poor background. My parents were laborers, and they had 6th grade education. But it was teachers like Miss Anderson, Miss Pusey, Mr. Harhay, Miss Condre, and that really embraced me as a young kid. And then Miss Basolio, Miss Palavin, they came to me one day when I was in 9th grade and said, we want to introduce you to a program called A Better Chance. And we need you to go through this program because we're looking for minorities that come from very poor backgrounds but have demonstrated academic excellence to go through this program, and you can help your race by showing that you can compete. And we've been watching you. You're now the president of the student body, and you can do this. To make a long story short, I was in Oakland, California. I was on a plane. Next thing I knew, I was in Colorado Springs and figured out I couldn't walk around the corner and be at home. And so either I'm going to go home a success or I'm going to go home a failure. I chose to go home as a successful person. And with that experience, though, I learned how education, at least in that environment, worked and how it worked for me. I went to school 6 days a week. I had mandatory study hall every night from 7 to 10. No TV, no radios, no nothing. I had to be in my seat every morning at 8:05 a.m. However, I also had maids clear up my room every day. I knew I was going to get 21 meals a week. I knew if I did everything right, I was going to get an allowance on Friday. And at the end of that experience, a 3-year experience, I graduated number 5 in the class. And then I returned back to California because I was a little homesick, even at 14, mama's boy, and went to University of Pacific. But University of Pacific was a lot easier because of what I learned there at Fountain Valley School. I went on, I stand before you today as an attorney and a certified public accountant. I have degrees in taxation, law, business, and communications, and it all started with A Better Chance. And so I've been fighting for education here in the District of Columbia. I was the one that made sure that our kids get their core books and materials by the 2nd week of each academic year. I was one that opened and led the fight for school modernization with the opening of McKinley Tech as McKinley Technology High School, an $85 million project. Followed that up with Noyes Elementary. I was the one that made sure that if you got a GED, you got a diploma. Since I had Gallaudet University in my ward at the time, I went ahead and made sure that the American Sign Language was approved as a language that you could actually graduate in. So education is near and dear. I'll close by saying I believe in a native son of Washington, D.C., Marvin Gaye, save the children who really care. I care, and I'm happy to have this discussion with you tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. That's strong. First of all, I want to thank our hosts tonight, all of them, and to Washington Latin for hosting us this evening as well. I'm Gary Goodweather, and I am running for mayor of DC because I believe we should expect more from our city. We should expect more from our city leaders, and you should expect more from me when I am mayor. We're talking about education tonight, and that is the most important issue that we're going to talk about in this campaign, because education is foundational to our society, to the prosperity and the well-being of every DC resident. I have built my life here in the city. I met my wife here. Both my kids were born and raised in this city. And let me tell you about what education did for me. Because I am in front of you this evening because of the education and training that I've received. And it goes to the values that I learned along the way that drives me to serve other people. When I was growing up, my mom made sure that we got to our public elementary school every day, my two brothers and I. And when I was getting in a little bit of trouble, my parents sacrificed and paid for me to go to a military school run by Benedictine nuns. And that was quite a combination, to say the least. Ultimately, it led me to another outstanding school, which is Georgetown Prep. And this is where I received, it really makes me, my wife sort of had this aha moment that in a lot of ways, I was raised by the Jesuits. And I boarded at Georgetown Prep for most of my time. It led me to, and I learned the Jesuit value to serve with and for other people, and that is core to what I am doing. I then went on to Bucknell University, another outstanding school, where I got a bachelor's in poli-sci, political science, ironically. I believe in service, so I got a commission in the United States Army, where leadership is trained and we are instilled the value again to serve others. Finally, I went to, while I was working during the day, I went to Johns Hopkins University's DC campus and then earned an MBA in finance, which you'll see as we talk more about it tonight will lead exceedingly well in what's going to happen to our city. I am serving because I am running to be mayor because every child deserves an outstanding education, or an excellent education. I see what it's done for me, and it also led me to the courage, the risk, to be able to start my own business. And it is my mission to ensure that every single child in our city receives an outstanding education.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rini Sampath, and I'm really thrilled to be here and spend about the next 90 minutes or so with each of you. So thank you for having me in your home and a place that you really cherish. So about me, I was born in a very small town called Thani, India, and my father is a product of education and a great story of how education can help one transcend borders and start a life here in the United States. My grandmother had a first grade education. My grandfather had a 7th grade education. My father was taken out of school to work in the factories to support his family, and it was his teachers who went to his parents and said, please, this boy deserves an education. And eventually became an engineer, eventually got married, had me, and we eventually moved to the United States. And today I get to stand before you as the first South Asian person in DC history to make it on the mayoral ballot. And I'm thrilled. This backstory is not one I tell just for fun. It's something I tell because I want you all to know and see that education is truly a big part of my heart. It's what drives me, it's what makes me come up on stage and tell you that I care about the problems we have here in Washington. And those problems start very much within the Wilson building. I'm running a campaign that is based on the premise of fixing the basics. So what does this mean? In DC, we know that the basics are broken. We have a dysfunctional 311 system. It took 3 years for one ANC to get a non-ADA compliant sidewalk fixed in my neighborhood. It takes 13 months on average to fill one affordable housing unit, Meanwhile, the director of the housing authority gets a $40,000 bonus the same year that happens. Another example, you have a 911 system. One of my campaign team members, friends, William, died of cardiac arrest because OUC and the 911 team coded his call incorrectly and sent EMS to the wrong place. This happens regularly in Washington, and it's the same problems we're seeing here in education. We know that Black students, Black men, are passing AP and IB test scores at 35% compared to 90+% for our white men in the city. We know that we have 3 times the national average for incarceration rates for Black men. This is unacceptable in a city that claims to be the capital of the United States. For me, you have very specific commitments when it comes to equity, and it starts with the basics. First, we need to make sure any appointments to the city administrators are not based on loyalty, but based on expertise. We know that contractors are overusing and spending our city tax dollars because they've got friends in the Wilson building. That needs to end. We know that city government officials are misusing their positions because they are seeking power, and that's affecting our youth. My job here is to serve our youth, is to make education better, and it'll start by fixing the basics. It'll start by making sure DC government is properly running. Thank you.
Good evening and assalamu alaikum to all my Muslim brothers and sisters in the room. I'm Talib Kareem Muhammad. I'm an engineer. I'm a lawyer. I'm the chief of staff formerly of the largest District of Columbia government agency. I'm a former senior counsel to the last mayor, Mayor Gray. I was also served as the special counsel to the Special Committee on DC Statehood. So we understood both the Democratic and the Republican ways of making sure DC is the first or the 51st state. I'm also former chief counsel to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee in the House Judiciary Committee, which oversees the process by which DC can become a state. I also lead a technology company that helps people find quality lawyers as easy as getting an Uber. And for the past 15 years, I've run a nonprofit organization that's helped to match people in the science and technology field with young people as mentors. How many people have had a mentor in their lives in this room? We believe that every DC child deserves a mentor. Every DC child deserves an after-school program because oftentimes our parents working 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 jobs and can't pick up their children from school. And finally, we believe that every child deserves a quality summer job or other quality experience, like it used to be when Marion Barry was mayor. And sadly, the people who are currently running our government, including those in the DC Council, have forgotten themselves. They started off here, but then when they got in power, they forgot where they came. And that's, dear brothers and sisters, a reason why I'm running for mayor, because for 2 years in a row, I asked DC Council for money to help provide for our young people so they can be safe after school, so they can get a mentor, so they can get a good meal, and so they get help with doing their homework. Because as you know, homework is the #1 determinant of whether or not a child is going to be engaged in school the next day or disruptive. And for 2 years in a row, the DC Council said they had no money for our program. But yet they found billions of dollars to give to their billionaire friends. First, the billionaires who own the Washington Wizards, and then the billionaires who own the Washington Commanders. Brothers and sisters, as mayor, I will make sure, with the help of the Almighty, that we build a movement. And we need y'all in this movement. If you all want to see change, brothers and sisters, my mentor told me, if you want to see change, Talib, you're going to have to be that change. Likewise, if you want change, you're going to have to be that change. Right now, our education levels are on the bottom. We spend more than any other state except 2 in the United States, but yet our academics are at the bottom. 23% reading, 30% math, truancy rates 50%, and yet they want a promotion. Brothers and sisters, I tell you, with the help of the Almighty and with your support, we will build a movement and we will make DC children, DC students, not the last, but the very best. Tal Kareem Muhammad. Check us out online. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to keep moving. I will, just as a reminder, we've got 90 seconds. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a 90-second with the alarm so that we all know when the 90 seconds are there. And you'll help support with the signs, but the alarm will ring at 90 seconds. Okay. We've got the first question. Are you ready for the first question, candidates? Yes. Okay, so DC has made significant investments in education over the past 2 decades, yet deep disparities persist, especially for students in Wards 7 and 8. Every mayor inherits competing demands. What would you prioritize in your first year to close those gaps? And what would you be willing to deprioritize to make that investment real? And is the format we're gonna keep going. Okay, we're gonna keep going in a row. Just.
I'm always first.
Oh, start with the next person for each question. Okay, so you'll be the last.
This is the first question, yes?
This is the first question.
Okay.
Yes, but you're gonna start with the first question, and she'll be the end, and then. Yes, and then we'll keep going down.
Follow the rules.
Okay, so I'll stand for this since we've been standing. So the first priority for me, which I already mentioned in my opening, is to set up a exploratory council to end mayoral control. Ending it abruptly might not be ideal, but we need to look at it because student outcomes have been worse under mayoral control than they were before. The second priority would be to also set up a policy council around that would discuss reinstituting minor and Washington Teachers College. We used to have teachers colleges here in the District of Columbia. We don't anymore. So our educators are not homegrown. Our educators are disconnected often from the students that they're teaching. No shade to Teach for America, but once Teach for America came in with the chancellor, our student outcomes got worse and the school to prison pipeline became prominent in the District of Columbia. They were starting to criminalize boys at the age of 9, Black boys particularly. So we saw an increase in the criminal justice system, engagement with our children as early as the age of 9 and 10 in school. And that should not be, because the teachers who we were recruiting could not identify issues or behavioral issues that were related to hunger, abuse at home, or poverty-related issues. Poverty is not a learning disability. So the resources have to be properly reallocated to the district, to Ward 7 and 8. I am a Ward 8 resident, so I understand very well what is going on in our ward, but also many of my clients that I've mentioned in my opening, their children attend the only public school that serves special needs children. That is in Ward 7, although some of those parents do not live in Ward 7. So the resource allocation.
The alarm didn't go off. That was 90 seconds.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Well, okay, that was a very dense question.
I hear you. Yeah, I think we're going to run into that because education is.
It is.
It's there's a lot going on in the education world. So thank you though for that thoughtful answer.
Well, I definitely want to be in charge of the educational system. I want the buck to stop with me. I was around when Victor was around, when Mayor Williams was around, when we fought really hard to get control of the school system. And at that time, I came on board with Williams because he put educational standards into the school system, yet we don't follow them. I think the real issue in our school system is the curriculum. What is being taught? So for a 3 and a 4-year-old, first of all, I'm going to make sure that their eyes are assessed, their hearing is assessed, and then we're going to see what's going on at the home. But we need to prepare that 3 and 4-year-old to take a seat as a 5-year-old in kindergarten. And then we need to understand what should be accomplished in kindergarten that prepares the person for the first grade. What is the curriculum in the first grade that's getting you prepared for the second grade? And then the second grade getting you prepared for the third grade, because we know there's going to be a standardized test. And that's where we're going to ascertain whether or not the child can read independently and whether or not the child can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, because the curriculum changes. I cannot introduce you to decimals, fractions, algebra, and what have you if you cannot add, subtract, multiply, and divide. The curriculum changes. You're no longer learning to read. You're reading for comprehension, and you have to give it back. And that's where we start having a break. And that's where you see a lot of kids are being pulled away from education because they find out that they've been left behind, and then you have other older kids and those in the streets begin to pull them away.
All right.
And so it's the curriculum.
My alarm is not very loud, apparently. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
So I think we should look at her.
Yeah, so keep an eye on her. We'll do this together. Thank you.
Is the wrap up 30 seconds or you're done? Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened.
I can try to give you like a 10 I can do 10 seconds.
I appreciate that. First thing we're going to do is create a real-time tracking. Everybody hear me okay? Is that a good position? A real-time tracking system so that we're identifying struggling kids, not in weeks or months, but all the time. Because we need to be able to ensure that if we are seeing issues, that we intervene earlier. With regards, all the research shows, the earlier that you can identify issues, the better the long-term outcomes for a student is. We can quote the statistics that we do spend more per student than any jurisdiction in the country, but we've been focused on the wrong outcomes. And when you have more than 50% truancy rate, and it's actually a little bit higher in east of the river, ward 7 and 8, it's hard to learn when you are not in a learning environment. So this system is going to ensure that we are able to real-time understand what is happening. Number two, and you're going to hear me talk about this a lot tonight, and actually some of my teams here, they laugh about it, but I'm creating the Capital Corps, which is a citywide civic organization dedicated to service that provides education and training for DC residents. It is a workforce development. We are going to utilize our greatest resource, our residents, to be able to provide career pathways and life skills and mentors for all of DC residents. And we have an education branch that will address this and a youth path. Thank you. Do we clap or no? I see Finn.
So I'm a director at a cybersecurity company, so I tend to be very facts and data-driven, numbers-driven, but I have to start with a personal story. One of my most enriching experiences in DC was working with Horton's Kids. I don't know if anyone's familiar. They're an amazing program. I got to work with young people in Anacostia, and it was transformative. And so one of the things I wanted to do with this campaign is make sure that we're not just looking at the numbers, but we get the real stories. And so I've been at metro stops in almost every single ward talking to young people. They're actually the folks who stop the most when they see me with my little sign. And so one of the things, I should say a few of the things that they've told me over and over again, one, infrastructure in their schools, and two, school lunches. And so I started digging into this a little bit more, and I think that this is a dignity issue. It's an issue of wanting to actually come to school and learn and feel excited about being at school, and that's important to me. If we're going to reform some of the issues that our young people have with why they want to come out, let's take care of it right from the root. And so those are actually two of my bigger priorities. We have failing HVAC systems in Anacostia, schools near Benning Road. We have schools that are suffering from not having the infrastructure, the basic services functioning so that students are able to come to school and be happy and actually get the education they deserve. So I've been a services candidate. That's what I'll focus on. And what I will deprioritize is the waste that we see rampant across DC government today, so that we can actually fund those programs, get that done. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, we don't have a youth crisis. We have a crisis of human capital. The most valuable thing that we have in District of Columbia isn't our land, it's our people, and particularly our youth. So one of the things that I realize, and as you know, that education starts at home. But sadly, 75 to 77% of our young people, particularly in the African American community, are born as mistakes. We're talking about unintentional pregnancies that brothers and sisters are not preparing for. And what does that mean? Oftentimes, young people who have children are actually consuming marijuana. And there are NIH studies that show that marijuana use both before conception, during pregnancy, and after child's birth is one of the #1 determinants of autism. That combined with early introduction of cell phones in front of children to actually pacify them, as opposed to engaging them and teaching them, is what our parents are sending to our DC public schools and what teachers are struggling with every single day. So as mayor, one of the things I'm going to do is start by preparing our parents to be the best parents in this country. And second of all, I'm going to cut the corruption that's sending billions of dollars on building buildings and not having great programming in those buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Your question.
What was the question? I didn't
I
get
haven't asked the question yet.
I didn't get a chance to answer the first question.
I don't know why they started.
That's right.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Okay. First and foremost, I want to make sure that we understand that education doesn't just start when students enter pre-K3 and pre-K4, but education starts from birth to 3. And those early years are just as critical as all of those years. So for me as mayor, it is prioritizing making sure that our pay equity fund is fully funded and that we have accessible childcare to every family in this city, and that we expand our childcare subsidy so that all families can qualify and so all students have access to quality early childhood education. The second thing that is important is that we can't close the achievement gap if students are not in school. And so we have to address the absenteeism crisis. And for me, the first step is getting one agency and one office within the agency assigned to dealing with absenteeism, because our biggest problem is that we get students from agency to agency, from CFSA to DHS to everywhere else, and so our students get lost in that system. So having one agency who's going to be charged with absenteeism and doing the evidence-based things that work, like home visiting programs and after-school programs, and making sure our young people want to be in school. The third thing that is important for me in that conversation is making sure that we have a fair funding formula for both our DC public schools and DC charter schools. And so that means everything needs to go through the funding formula. And what we have done is create an equitable system by taking our funds out of that funding formula and then piecemealing our funding. We need to make sure that all of our students get the dollars they deserve, because all of our students deserve the same level of investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologize. All right, round 2. Literacy.
Oh, great.
We know that when boys and young men of color have access to strong literacy instruction early, they thrive. What specific investments will you make in your first year as mayor to ensure that every child has the reading foundation they need to unlock their full potential by 3rd grade?
Well, you're right there where I started. Once again, is what is the curriculum? What is being taught to these young people, especially as they're young? So therefore, you pretty much are able to guide them. You know, you're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds. So we really have to zero in on early education and make sure the basic foundation is there. I indicate to you, I was a better chance student. Now, I was scared to death when I got that scholarship because it was a catch. They said, first, you have to go to Carleton College, and then we have to assess you and see what did you learn in Oakland Public Schools. You talk about these teachers, but what curriculum did the teachers provide for you, and what did you get from it? Fortunately, I had good teachers, and I was able to move forward. And that's why I'm really concentrating on what are we teaching the students? What are we getting the young people prepared for? And it's really our fault as a system. You know, we don't even have an education committee at the council. So you don't have a champion for education. We can listen to all the rhetoric, but at the end of the day, it's all about the math. Can you get 7 votes out of that council? And if you really want to run the city, can you get 9 votes to override the mayor?
10 seconds.
For the mayor, can the mayor get 5 votes to overcome any attempt to override? How many times has the mayor sent legislation to the Congress and it's gotten kicked back without her signature? So there's a lot going on. You can listen to all this rhetoric, but it's about those numbers. 7, 9, and 5. Those are the pertinent numbers for any chief executive officer of the District of Columbia. Thank you.
Number one is we are going to screen every child starting in kindergarten more often. We are going to identify issues so that we can address them early. Number two is that we have the science of reading. This is research back way of improving literacy. However, it has not been implemented as well as it should be. And the educators, the teachers, have not been given the resources to make sure that it is able to be instituted as well. And we're going to have checkpoints all along the way to ensure that we are focused on the correct outcomes. And this is where I'm asking for all of your help. All of you are the experts in this. You tell me, what are the best metrics that we should be evaluating to ensure that our children, that our students are able to be able to succeed? I also just want to address about the pay equity fund, because my Capital Corps has an education branch which will be funded, and it's online. We're putting out exactly how we're going to do it. The pay equity fund is exceedingly important in the short term. Ultimately, though, we need to ensure that our early childhood workers, all teachers, all our social workers, mental health professionals are receiving a wage that is commensurate with the professionalism of what they do.
So I was ESL. Anyone here ESL students? All right. So I know one thing's for a fact. I don't think I would have personally ever solidly learned English if not for the fact that I got to go home. I had a 2-parent household, and mom and dad would sit down with me and help me learn English or do homework with me or whatever it might be. And that changed my life, right? And it's going to probably change a lot of people's lives if they have that privilege. But that's not the case for many students in Washington, and that's not what they go home to. So one of the things that I think is very important for our literacy rates is the presence of after-school programs and programs like Boys and Girls Clubs. There's opportunities through these programs where kids can actually improve their literacy if they're among community members, if they're among mentors, folks who can really invest in them as young people. And that's incredibly important for me as mayor to make sure we fund and strengthen. The second thing is I want to see investment in our teachers from a mental health perspective. This is one of the most difficult jobs that anyone has in our city. And if our teachers aren't fortified, if our teachers aren't supported, we can't expect the best outcomes from them for our students. And the third thing, I absolutely want to make sure that there is no fear of MPD and ICE cooperation at a time when our literacy rates are so terrible.
10 seconds.
I bring this up because if students are fearful of coming to school, if there aren't safe passageways where they can come to school, or worried about their dad or mom not being at home when they get there, those kinds of fears create problems for outcomes like our literacy rates. Thank you.
So I'll just pick back up. She made a great point about the ICE intervention. DC is not a state because our DC council spends less than 0.002% of the DC budget on statehood. Under our administration, we're going to spend no less than $500 million because DC becoming a state wins us billions of dollars that we can put into our education schools, our education system, in particular schools. And speaking of schools, let me just tell you a little story. I went to the United States Air Force Academy. I don't know if any of you all know anything about military academies, but it's a very rigorous and disciplinary-based environment. But yet, just weeks before I went to the Air Force Academy, I was in jail. I was a 17-year-old whose mother had just died, and I was wandering aimlessly on the streets. And I know firsthand that our young boys aren't menaces to society naturally, but they need discipline. And so as mayor, I want to establish all boys academies so we can give our boys the disciplines that they need. And not to devoid them of, again, the great job the mothers are doing, but to fortify our mothers by making sure that they have, again, the type of environment that their boys can go to and get that discipline so they can become lawyers and doctors and engineers and won't have to become people who are on the streets. Thank you.
This way, front of them. Yeah, sorry.
So the question was about literacy, and right now, thank you. Right now, 75% of our students are not meeting benchmark in literacy, and this is citywide. And so those of you who know what CAS, right? We start testing at the 3rd grade, so grades 3 through 8, 75%. DC, we don't have to hypothesize about what to do because DC knows what to do because we used to do it. The National Children's Education Center, and please forgive me if I'm messing up the name of that organization, but they had reading specialists that they sent home to help children with reading. For whatever reason, that program has been defunded by the District of Columbia. The Washington Literacy Center, run by a man named Jimmy Williams, who lives in Ward 7, is my neighbor. Jimmy Williams has a family literacy program that he's implementing. He gets very little to no support from the District of Columbia government. Little to no support. So he fundraises on his own. And I introduce Jimmy to as many people as I can who have dollars to give because he's not getting it from the council or the mayor. But we have, to tie this in, we have an adult illiteracy rate of 40%. So if the parents cannot read, if they're functionally illiterate, their children, that affects the outcome of their children. So the District of Columbia has to reinvest all this infrastructure, RFK Stadium, God bless them. But those dollars need to be allocated towards reading specialists who are willing to go into the homes of these parents or to host the parents at school so that teachers can focus on, okay, I'm sorry, I'm done, but thank you, God bless you. Reading specialists, everybody.
Thank you. No, I didn't listen. It started with that. It's getting confusing. Cascading thing.
Cascading thing.
But I don't know how I ended up last it, but it's okay. Here we go. So listen, I agree with Ms. Ford that if we're going to address literacy issues, we also have to address the adult literacy issues. And I want to be a mayor that also is focusing on adult literacy and child literacy. I also think it's important that we understand that, again, this city is resource rich. It's just coordination poor, right? And so we already have the literacy task force recommendations. What we really have to do is implement those with fidelity and ensure that it's not a superficial implementation, but an actual substantive implementation of that. That is one of the most important things we can do. In that, we know that we should be prioritizing certain things. We know the science of reading works. We also know that high impact tutoring is important and it does work. I know because I was a high impact tutorer and getting students back on track. And so those are the things we need to be investing in. And we have to be clear that equity and equality are not the same thing. And so in our schools where we have students who are suffering at a lower level with reading, that's where we need to do intensive support and ensure we have tier 1 instruction happening. And so those are the things I want to do to make sure that we are addressing our literacy rate head on and making sure we're doing those things on day one and have an education system that also prioritizes that across the board. Thank you.
All right, we'll figure this format out before we're done, but
Okay.
we've got another one to go. Yep.
Oh, no, I think I'm next.
You're starting
I'm already, I'm a self-starter. I'm already getting ahead
You're
of it.
ready
I
for
think I'm,
Okay.
that's the next question.
All right, attendance, belonging, and re-engagement. So many students who show up, well, students will show up when they feel like they belong. But too many students in DC face real barriers: transportation, safety, mental health, family difficulties that make consistent attendance difficult. What will your administration do to address the root causes of chronic absence and create the conditions where every student can show up and be present?
Number one, I'm going to create a city that is affordable for everyone to live in. And that includes teachers, because I believe that you deserve to live in the city if you want to be able to serve the students. As mentioned, we're going to create a dashboard to be able to track attendance and to be able to know in real time what is going on with an individual student and be able to address it. We're going to be, I'm instituting Fare Free DC, which provides free transportation on Mayoral Metro bus to ensure that students can get to school, that parents can take their kids to school. We are going to reallocate dollars away from central office and to where it matters, to the educators and to the principals to be able to deploy dollars where they see it's necessary to be able to get our students engaged. And the Capital Corps. As part of our education branch, I recognize that service and service to others, and let me geek out for 1 second. We recognize, all the research shows that when you do things for other people, that when you look at functional MRIs of people's brains, kids' brains, you literally change the pathways of how they think. And I want to make a point here is that mental health is health, and I'll continue to say it until we don't need to say it again. And ultimately, we are going to hire more reading specialists, mental health professionals, special educators, social workers, and we are going to do it through the Capital Corps.
So when I was out petitioning in Columbia Heights, I met a really wonderful woman who's an educator in Columbia Heights, and she told me about chronic absenteeism in her school, in her classroom, and that the students who are most affected by it are actually her young Latina girls. And so I talked to her for some time about this, and she said one of the reasons for that is that these young girls are the child care providers of their family. And so they end up staying at home taking care of their siblings instead of being at school. So it's always interesting to me how any of these issues that we deal with here in our city are often tied together in such an intricate way. So it's hard to address something like chronic absenteeism without talking about something else like child care. And when I start to talk about child care, I go into provider economics, and I say it's so difficult to open up a child care facility in DC. A second floor child care facility is not possible in our city, which makes it harder for child care providers to have their offices open, and our subsidies aren't even strong because we don't have a functioning economy in our city. So all of these things are interconnected, and we cannot talk about chronic absenteeism without talking about these other issues. On top of that, I have to address transit delays, because imagine if you were waiting for your bus to go to school, but the bus doesn't come on time because there's potholes in your road and there's issues with the street lights and the traffic lights. Maybe you just don't want to go to school at all, and things get harder. And so I have to insert in here that we as a team actually redesigned the 311 app. You can go to readingformayor.com/311 because we got so frustrated with our existing 311 services. So we need innovation, we need a tech-forward approach and a systems-based approach to address any issue like chronic absenteeism. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, this administration doesn't care about young people. And the demonstration of that is the fact that in Montgomery County, they go and pick up their children and make sure that their children are not absent, they're not truant, because they make sure they have buses that take their children from home to school and from school back home. And under the Muhammad administration, that's exactly what we'll have here in Washington, D.C. But not only that, we'll have children who are motivated and interested in coming to school, who are excited about going to their schools, because they know that they have teachers who are excited about educating them, and they have the very best facilities. Do you know, you go into some of these classrooms in this school building, there aren't even, again, outlets for children to be able to plug in their laptops at every desk. How can you do work when you actually are basically out of electricity? This is the type of thing that we want to basically solve. We have artificial intelligence that can solve problems for us, but we're not actually using this technology to actually make sure that our children are the very best. And under the Muhammad administration, that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get the very best students, you get the very best educators, and you will get resources to make sure that our parents are also the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it. That resource particularly, and I'm going to come back in my next round, is a Universal Basic Income Act that I'll talk more with you about in a second.
So let's pass this down.
Okay. This way. Right. All right, we got it. Okay.
We're learning.
We're all learning. Lifelong learning.
First of all, I want to say that I believe that there are people in our school system that deeply care about our kids. And I know for a fact the educators and the parents and the school administration staff and many of the advocates who work every single day care about our community and our students every day. Again, as I've said before, our city is resource rich. We're just coordination poor. And that's why I'm running for mayor, to coordinate some of the things we haven't. I've already talked to you about one single office who's going to be dedicated to chronic absenteeism, who's going to do home visiting, because I can tell you, kids aren't scared of the truancy van, but they are scared if they know somebody's going to show up at their door if they were not in school. And parents are also scared that if every time their child is in school, someone's going to show up there. We know home visiting works. We're going to double down in it. The other thing that we're going to do is address some of the issues that we have around transportation. The School Connect program has to be one. Until we solve the issue that we have quality schools in every neighborhood, right? So students don't have to travel from east of the river to west of the park to get a good education. The priority has to be quality, excellent schools in every neighborhood, so transportation is no longer a barrier and something that is a requirement. The other thing that we need to do is anchor some of our after-school programs, our arts and our athletics as ways to bring young people back into school, because we know they thrive when they can learn about whether they want to be a musician or they want to be an artist. We have to feed some of their talents in order to bring them back into the classrooms as well. And I know my time is up, so I will end there. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about something that's the elephant in the room that no candidate really wants to talk about, but that is family. Can't address some of these issues without addressing home life and family life. And I'm in Ward 7 and Ward 8. We have the most children and youth in our part of the city than any other part of the city. More than 90% of our households are headed by women alone. The Office of the Attorney General doesn't really do a great job enforcing child support and all of that. And I'm not talking about criminalizing it, but there is a program there where they help men who have to pay child support get jobs. Only 100 some odd men in that program. But they have, tens of thousands of cases? We have a broken system. And this is something, we have to fix this. Because with the number, every time the media talks about the teen takeovers and all of this stuff happening, we know that part of this stems from broken homes. And nobody wants to talk about that. It's not really a political issue, but it's something that has gotten so bad that as a mayor, I have to address this in a way. You can't legislate morals. You can't force people to get married. You can't do all that. But there are things that we can do to promote family.
10 seconds.
To promote home life. To promote parenting. Under the Obama administration, we had lots of fatherhood dollars and lots of fatherhood programming. The district is going to have to beef up that programming because the men and women, they want to take these classes. They're just not available to them. But home life is fundamental to this. It's not just about throwing money around and transportation. No. It's about family and restoring some of those values. So I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe this is an issue when you go back to the institutional knowledge. We can continue to talk about this to describe the problem, but we need leadership. When has the last time you heard that our chancellors, making about $375,000, had to answer for children not being in the classroom? When have you ever heard the principals really having to answer for the kids not being in school? Now, if you're employed in here, they know when you come to work. There's accountability. At the end of the week, you should know who came to school and who did not come to school. And that information is funneled up to go and address that particular issue. But it's about institutional knowledge. We can't go in and keep recreating. We need to come in and solve the problem right away. It's just like, I hate to go against my colleague here. He talks about statehood. Let's be clear about statehood. Eleanor Holmes Norton took us to the 1 yard line. It was two people that stopped statehood. The senator from West Virginia and the senator from Arizona. It was set up. Only thing Kamala Harris had to do was break the tie. It was going to be 50-50 Biden signs the bill. The other time we were close to stay here, it was Democrats. Jimmy Carter was the president. We had it all set up.
10 seconds.
And once again, it fell through because of us. It's the institutional knowledge, and stop making those mistakes over and over and over again. And we can entice our kids to come to school by giving them good meals. An 8-year-old told me, "You're running for mayor. Can you please make sure we get good meals at the school?" When I was coming up and going to school, I knew there was going to be a nice cookie and milk there. I couldn't wait to get to school in the mornings. So we can entice them to come to school.
Now I want cookies and milk.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Look at us.
All right, now we're going to do inclusion for students with disabilities. So students with disabilities in DC are too often segregated from general education classrooms or pushed out of schools through discipline practices in the absence of supports. How would your administration ensure that students with disabilities have access to inclusive, high-quality education throughout their K-12 experience?
First of all, I have to praise Ms. Ford for your tremendous advocacy for students with disabilities. I think I've heard that over and over, and it's evident there are people fighting for the rights of students with disabilities. And for me, that's something that I care deeply about. It's something that we've centered in our campaign from day one, specifically when it comes to infrastructure. We know that disabilities are not something that we need to pinpoint for students and assume that they just gonna figure it out. We have to make sure that the infrastructure works for them. And the reason I say this is that everything from our pedestrian walkways in the city to for our blind or impaired students oftentimes don't work. We know that it's incredibly difficult for the city to even repair a non-ADA compliant sidewalk. It takes on average years to do that. These kinds of infrastructure issues immediately impact our students with disabilities, whether they're wheelchair users, whether they are blind, whether they have hearing impairments, and we have to make sure that the infrastructure, the basics that I keep talking about over and over again, are fully taken care of in order for them to have truly an inclusive learning experience. That also means that when they come to school, they have inclusive classrooms. So if you think about our students who are wheelchair users, we know some of them struggle because they don't have desks that allow them to properly take tests while they're in their wheelchair. And so these are little things that go an extremely long way, and that's one of the ways that I think we can make things easier and better for our students with disabilities. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, do you remember the snow pandemic? Our brothers and sisters in wheelchairs and others who were disabled couldn't even get into the street to get into their cars for weeks because of the Department of Government Services that one of our council members who was here oversaw didn't do a good job. Brothers and sisters, the disabled community in this district are basically discounted every single day by the people who are in power because they think that they are kings and queens as opposed to servant leaders like Marion Barry. Under my administration, you can count on me making sure that we look at the least first. First, not last. Brothers and sisters, we, as she said, don't have a resource problem. We have a leadership problem. We need leaders who don't put themselves first, but put the people and the parents and the students first. You can get children excited to come to school and to come to class. Do this Universal Basic Income Act that I told you about. And the Universal Basic Income Act will pay parents to make sure that their children are successful. And if you succeed, you can get up to $2,000 a month. And if your children are truant, then that money will be taken away. That's how we can make sure that our students are doing the very best. Thank you.
Go and pass the mic. Thanks for that.
Oh, great, thank you. I talked about this in my opening because this is one of my top priorities. It's going from a city that's just reactive to our students with special needs and being proactive. And I know that we've just been reactive. I spent a brief time at the Office of State Superintendent of Education. And to me, a fair, appropriate public education is the bare minimum. And so the question isn't, oh, if you can sue the city and get a non-public placement, that's how we serve students. Because guess what? There's plenty of parents who don't have access to lawyers to be able to fight those fights. And their students deserve to have their individualized education plans also implemented within their schools. So what do we have to do? We have to ensure that we are supporting our teachers, our special education teachers with the appropriate time and planning and funding they need to be successful. We have to ensure that we are also training and teaching our current teachers who are not special education teachers how to implement individualized education plans, because that's how we have least restrictive environments. We also have to invest dollars in more schools that actually can serve higher IEP levels, so we're not spending millions of dollars on out of local placements, but use those dollars so students can have education in our school system now. I want a system where our special education students have access to achievement opportunities, right? That it's more than just compliance, but it's about proficiency. So I'm talking about a DDS and an RSA that actually prioritizes our young students as they're going through. What will they have after they leave our education system, right? Because it's from 0 to 22, but I want them to have jobs that they believe in and a career that they can actually serve in. So it's about taking our students and giving them access to real opportunities and not just moving them through a system without that intentionality and without that investment. Thank you.
So saying what we have to do and doing it are two completely different things. And as someone who represents families, I also represent educators as well. And I get phone calls at 10 o'clock at night about what happened in school that day. I have asked the District of Columbia to provide additional training after talking to principals and heads of school about their special needs classrooms. We have IEP classrooms. River Terrace, as you know, is our public school that exclusively provides education to students with complex disabilities. I've talked to them under oath. And despite their demands through central office, under this council, and under this mayor, no additional training for their staff who work directly with children with autism and disabilities. Zero. So then I took it upon myself to try to negotiate a remedy on behalf of a representative sample of parents of special needs children to say, look, here's what we need. I looked at Fairfax County's model. They've got an incredible training infrastructure set up. It happened after litigation though. So as a part of my litigation, I said, look, this is what my parents are looking for. It's not dollars in their pockets, but training. The District of Columbia said no. So I told them to pound sand. And I've been litigating like Rambo ever since then against the district. So they talk about it, but can you be about it?
Come on now.
Without litigation.
Come on now.
So I plan on bringing courtroom accountability to the Wilson building because it's not there right now.
Well, indirectly, I know a lot about this subject matter because I've been married for 43 years to my wife, Gwendolyn Evans Orange, who is a special education teacher, who's been recognized numerous times by the Council of the District of Columbia, also had expert status when Michelle Reed was there. It doesn't matter who's there, she does well in that area. But the thing that surprised me is about advocacy. Sometimes I'm overhearing their conversation. I said, is that judge such just called you about their child? Is that the news anchor that just called you about their child? It's about advocacy. Who is advocating for your child with those needs? And it's also about that IEP. Is that IEP proper? Is that assessment proper? A lot of times they'll place that label on your child so they can just keep moving on. They don't want to deal with the real issue. And so at the end of the day, it's about having an advocate for everyone. Everyone can't get the same advocate. And that's the reason why we need to focus in on advocacy. There needs to be certain advocates already established, already appointed for the special education population. And that's why I say at an early age, those 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they need to be assessed properly. The child can't read because you didn't assess that the child needed glasses. Child is not paying attention because you didn't assess that the child needed a hearing aid. And you didn't assess what was going on in that home. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The money is there. It's the execution of those dollars, and it's the execution of advocacy, and it's the execution of a proper IEP.
Number one is making it easy to access services. It is brutal trying to even understand what services are available, how to access them, who pays for them. I will tell you my personal experience. We were fortunate enough to be able to identify my daughter's learning difference, disability early. And we were able to afford the testing for her. We were ultimately able to afford to send her to the lab school of DC, which is outstanding what they do. It's a box of what they do, but it's great. We need to reallocate. This system, the way that it works right now, it is inhumane. Regardless of the child, regardless of the individual disability, our system was set up to teach the most people during the Industrial Revolution. This is where we need to prioritize kids that have special needs early, provide them ILPs as fast as possible, and ultimately provide every child an ILP, because we need to teach to every child, period. And this is also where the Capital Corps and the education branch and our health services branch will create the workforce development, the workforce to be able to actually serve all of our children's needs. And this is, again, where I'm asking all of you, the experts, to tell us the metrics to be able to address our children's issues. And something that I say is, we have all the intellectual capital. Thank you. I'm passionate about it.
All right. No, you're, okay, we're now gonna give the audience a chance to ask a question. Is there anybody in the audience that, okay, we've got a hand raised, someone coming up? You sure? That'd be great. All right, and we're not gonna have time for more than 2 audience questions, I think, unfortunately, so, okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Erin. I am a speech language pathologist, and I primarily work with kids in words 7 and 8. You guys were just talking about special education. I do agree with the aspects of infrastructure, but one of the things that I'm seeing is that it's not just the services in the school. A lot of my kids are also experiencing poverty. They're also experiencing a lot of other economical inequities that are also impacting their educational outcomes. So my question to you is, how do you plan to coordinate a lot of different agencies to better support our special education students? It's not just on me as the speech therapist. It takes more than the parents. It takes more than the community. We actually need DC agencies to step up so that my kids can get to school and get the services they need.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Miller.
So I would say, first of all, as I mentioned in my last comment, the Universal Basic Income app will do an amazing job at making sure that we eliminate some of this disparity by putting dollars in the pockets of parents who are engaged and who need help in making sure that they can actually even be more engaged. Second of all, by having an elimination of the transportation barrier that a lot of our children face, then we can do away with a lot of the truancy, both for our disabled children as well as our children without disabilities. And I also agree that we need an education plan that is fit for every single student, because I believe that every single student matters. And I think that this is the approach with the Mohammed administration that you will get. Something that's not just doing the same thing and trying to do it over and over. I think that's a definition of insanity. But I think we have to do things different, and that's exactly what you'll get with the Mohammed administration. Thank you.
You want to go this?
Oh,
Why don't we just go back to the yes?
thank you. Okay.
It's easy.
Got it. And then it comes back.
get in trouble with the teacher.
Right. First, thank you for that question. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about sort of who's been doing what and how, right? I had the privilege of being the oversight chair of CFSA for a while. And my colleague talked about 311. I want to let you all know that myself and a former CFSA director, Director Matthews, came up with something that we knew was important, and that was the 211 warm line. We created this warm line first as a pilot. So if you don't leave anything else today, understand that students and parents, you can call 211 today and get the support services you need. We created that pilot because we were tired of students just getting services if they entered the criminal justice system or they entered the neglect system. And what that pilot created and what we saw was in the first 6 months of us having that, we got over 500 something calls from families and students. And what that showed us was that they were having issues. Housing was an issue, health was an issue, job security was an issue. And we were able to take that data and continue to use it. So we're going to continue to do the work with that. We connected those young people with our family strengthening collaboratives. We have collaboratives in every ward that our function is to strengthen families, and our collaboratives will continue to do that work. The last thing I will say is my vision for this city is not just being a sports town, but a university and a hospital town. And one of the things we're going to do is leverage our hospital, DC Health, and the data they bring in to help us better coordinate and utilize how we do impactful and intentional work around our students in a more holistic manner. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. And thank you for this question. So we can't really leverage resources that aren't there or that parents don't know about. So one of the things that I want to do, and somebody mentioned this, in addition to moving education to its standalone committee, taking it out of the committee of the whole where people can hide about the outcomes, because everybody on the council's on the committee of the whole, is to create a body with people like yourself on there, because politicians don't know. But the people who are on the ground know. And so people on the ground like yourself should have a direct line to people like myself who create policy, so we know exactly how to create policy that actually works for people and the people that you're serving. So I want to create a body specifically for students and parents with disabilities that has a direct line to the council so that we understand how to govern well, because we're not governing well. And that's why you hear and you're asked that question. So thank you for that.
10 seconds, thank you.
I believe your question was about coordination, how you get all the agencies together to make sure that they provide the resources. Well, once again, the buck stops with the mayor. The mayor has a cabinet. All those agencies have to come and meet with the mayor. Now, I don't know how long y'all been around, you've been watching, but when I was on the council, and Linda Kropp made me chair of the Committee on Government Operations, and I saw that in the CBE, Certified Business Enterprises, they were only getting $0. And I called every agency head every year, had to appear before me and answer the question, why are you out of compliance? Make a long story short, I took it from $0 to $481 million being spent with our DC businesses. And that's because you call them in and you hold them accountable. Today, $1.5 billion is being spent with our CBEs because it's about accountability. The mayor and I got together and created the Green Book. And that's the same philosophy that I bring in everything else. If you look at Ward 5 and all the things that I've been able to accomplish, it's about accountability, bringing people together and holding them accountable.
First of all, thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. Number one is we are going to put experts, subject matter experts in every position, and they are going to be mission driven. They need to recognize that they are in government to serve you, to serve the teachers, to serve the educators, and to serve our students. In terms of coordination throughout the agencies, I've spent the past 30 years here in business and in advocacy for my children, and I have seen what it takes to navigate throughout the entire city, and it is brutal. This is where my leadership, our training, say this is what we are trained to do as leaders. Leaders are trained and educated. They are not born. And this is where I'm going to use all of my
10 seconds.
all of my training, education, resources, and all of the intellectual capital that we have here in this room to execute on a government that is actually effective for you and for your students.
Thank you again. Brilliant question. I look at the topic of coordination between agencies as a DC government culture problem. If you think about DC government, you talk to DC government employees, a lot of them tell you that it is a very difficult place to work. And it's not one where they feel empowered by their supervisors. It's not one where they want to really come to work. And that leads to in systemic issues. And I'm not just saying this from theory. I've been a chief of staff over a 400-person team. The larger these organizations get, the more complicated they get. So I totally recognize that. But if we are going to improve the culture of our DC government and empower our individuals within DC government, I think you're going to see better outcomes within coordination. So that's one piece. The second piece is technology. And so the more that we can utilize technologies between the agencies, the better. So right now, I know from the permitting system in DC, if a small business owner applies for a permit and they ever get stuck in the online queue and they call the customer service, they tell you to go back to the online system. And the online system tells you to call customer service. This is just a small example of DC government not having a true technology core that prevents us from executing the way that we should as a modern, efficient, effective government.
Thank you. One more audience question.
Okay.
That one's not on, I think.
Yeah. Oh, is there a question?
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for your participation. My name is Yaida Anderson. I am a member of an advocacy group here in DC, and my question is to all of you, of course, but in every competition, right, sports, everything, there's one winner, absolutely one, and we know that, right? And so with there being one winner, there's only one person that is going to be mayor after this election. My question to each of you, because I've heard some brilliant voices, some brilliant ideas, how are we going to work together with those that are not the winner, right? How do we, because I've been in these spaces before where everybody makes a promise and then they go ask, and I don't like you. Yeah. And so my question is, how do we work together with whoever wins, like or not, but it is about our children? How do we work together with the advocacy groups that are working, as well as with the mayor, whoever is elected? How will we work together with them instead of barking at them, but working together? And the winner, how do we work together with those who had all these brilliant ideas? How will we work together to make sure that everybody comes together for who is the main purpose, and that is our children?
Thank you.
Amen. I think that's so. I think you're absolutely right. And I want to say, like, that's the DC I know. One that we come together, we debate our differences, we come at different perspectives, and then we come together for the greater cause. And you're absolutely right. The greater cause is our children and making sure we do that. And I think there's a posture where we can both be proud of where our education system is today. And I am proud of the access to education we have, the adult education we have in this city, the choices our communities have. I am proud of the progress that we have made. And I also think there's a space to be proud and then also want more progress. And I think those of us who understand that we are proud of where we are but want more progress get to come together on what that progress actually looks like. And that means centering the voices that matter most. I believe you center those who are closest, right, to the issues to come up with your solutions. That's what real leadership calls for. So for me, that means listening to our students and listening to our educators and listening to our parents and bringing our ideas together and then implementing those plans collectively and together. And I think that's how we come together, and that's what it looks like every single day to show up for DC, and true leadership looks like across the board.
Thank you.
So in response to you, I think as a business owner, I've learned two things primarily. is listening and humility. And when you're trying to accomplish a goal, you have to put ego aside. And there are people on this stage I would reach out to. I've heard technology genius talking about apps, all of these things that we need to improve service delivery to our residents, and particularly our children, and particularly our Black and brown children, and particularly our boys, which is what we're here to talk about today. And talks about athletics, and so I know what I don't know. But it's important as a leader to reach out to those, regardless of issues and personality differences and all of that, who do know and who do hold the keys and the answers to the future of this city. So it means using diplomacy and calling on those who you know are experts in what they do to come and help you lead, because it can't be done. I mean, heavy is the head of she who wears the crown, but she doesn't govern by herself.
Come on.
So that's the characteristic that I want to bring to the table. Thank you.
Well, I have a record of working with the government, whether I'm in government or not. 3 years ago, the mayor's office called me up and said, "You wrote this bill to create youth apprenticeship programs. We have not been able to get it off the ground. Will you come back and work at DOES and take over this program?" Said yes. The program is a 200-hour program for high school seniors. In the last 3 months of their educational career, I put them with employers. It becomes a dating game. If you like the employer and the employer likes you, when you graduate from high school, you will get a full-time apprenticeship with benefits, with a salary, with health care. I did it with Howard University. This past year, we had 44 12th graders, tried to get a couple here from Washington Latin, and 40 of them graduated, 33 of them got credentials, and 22 of them are now working at Howard University. So that's why as mayor, I will have a youth apprenticeship program for every agency, and I'm guaranteeing that 1,500 high school seniors on an annual basis will receive entry-level apprenticeships with the DC government, as well as they can go to UDC tuition-free under my plan.
Honestly, I had not thought about it until you just asked the question. I've been so focused on running to serve. And there may only be one mayor, but what I do believe is that we are all running with one purpose, and that is to lift all DC residents up. And I will serve in whatever capacity, and I will work with anyone who believes that every DC resident can be lifted up, and that wants to serve our children. And regardless of title or position, service is not about me. It is about for and with others. And as long as my
10 seconds.
As long as my Jewish values, to come along to repair the world, my Jesuit values that I was educated on to serve and for others, I will do that with anyone who calls upon me.
It's a great question, and I think we need this at this time in history, most certainly, so thank you. One of the reasons why I really like this question is also I think this is the beauty of a Democratic primary. When we compete against each other, and we have to prove to you that we've got the best ideas, it pushes us to be better. So what I know that I commit to is by the end of this process, I'm going to be forever changed, and I will be participating in our government in a way that I hope to serve government in a meaningful way. So I know for me personally, I'm passionate about our economic revival. I'm passionate about seeing jobs for our youth, and that's a program, the Marion Barry Youth Summer Program, that I want to personally see strengthened. So that's an area I would love to participate in and make better if I'm not the winner of this race. And so the other side of this I also want to mention is that we as a campaign team, my sisters in the room, are just forever changed by this experience. And whether you're 23 years old like my sister or my campaign manager up here who's a tech director, we are all here because we care about the city, and we plan to continue caring about it in every single way. Thank you.
So yes, dear brothers and sisters, as you know, there's some people who don't play by the rules. There's some people who have been appointed or anointed by the media as the winner of this election. There's some organizations that call themselves free DC maybe even, who don't allow some of us to even get on the stage because they want to appoint various people as the winner. But we know that there is an Almighty who controls the outcome of all decisions. And with the help of the Almighty and your vote and your work and your time, we will build a movement to make DC safe, affordable, and free. Now, of course, I pray to be able to work with every last one of you brothers and sisters in the Mohammed administration. But if it's not the Mohammed administration, you have my commitment to work and to challenge you, to remind you of what you said that you were going to do on this stage. So let's work together and let's win together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to move to candidate closing statements. And I believe, Ms. Ford, you're up first. We are over time, so we're going to do... Oh, I'll start first. You're first, okay. Yeah, sir.
To be fair.
60 seconds.
Oh.
So, because we're, by the way, we're 10 minutes over already.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, you're right.
So...
So, brothers and sisters, over the course of tonight, I think you've seen clearly that some people think that power and leadership belongs to them, either through inheritance or through gift. But I believe that power belongs to the people. I believe that together we can make DC safe, affordable, and free. And I believe that we can do this by working together, not by giving commitments to the people one day, but then going to our donors the next day and saying something different. Brothers and sisters, you all are going to make it a difference about who's going to be the next mayor. Not the Washington Post, not the 51st, not Free DC, you all. And I pray
10 seconds.
that we will decide to do something different, not continue basically the same thing that we've done over and over and over, but to decide tonight that we want to change. We want our students to be the best students in the United States, not the second to the last of the last. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone again for having me tonight. It's been fabulous. I hope we can chat after the program. Once again, my name is Rini Sampath and I'm running for mayor because I want to fix the basics. I want to see our infrastructure be better. I want to see our education systems work. I want to see our roads, our schools, our every single part of DC needs to look, feel, and actually operate. And I know that DC government has an execution problem, and that's what I'm here to do. I need to fix this city's fundamental issues, and DC must deliver on its municipal promises. That's not what's happening today. So we've spent this hour and a half together, and if you do remember one thing, I want you to go check out readyformayor.com/311. It's the redesigned 311 app, and hopefully it's an opportunity for you to see the way that we think, which is a very tech-forward, innovative approach, because it is possible for us to make our city much better and bring it into the 21st century. So thanks for having me tonight, and I hope to chat with you after the program. Thank you.
Thank you again to our host this evening. I really appreciate you having me. Again, thank you to all of you. I started by saying tonight you should expect more. And that is critical because not only should you expect more, but you deserve more. And every child in the city deserves an outstanding education. That is the city that I envision, is that every child receives an outstanding education so that they can be lifted up. I have seen what education has done for me and for my children, and I want that for every child in our city. We have put out all of our plans and policies. We have put out our education platform, Educate DC. Please take a look. We put out the Capital Corps on our website. Please study a little bit. My homework to you all is please take a look at my policies and plans and see how I'm going to serve you, because that is why I am running. is to serve you. And again, thank you all very, very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And the reason why I'm running for mayor is to continue delivering to the citizens of the District of Columbia. I've been credited with jumpstarting economic development in this city when I brought Home Depot, Costco's, Lowe's, and all that to Ward 5. I'm not Benjamin Banneker, but I did change the comprehensive plan for the growth of Union Market. I was the one that was the co-chair of the new metro station on North Capitol that laid the foundation to create NOMA. I was the one that got the $15 minimum wage, put the index in. It's now at $17.95 per hour. This July, it will go to $18.40. For the last 25 years, you've been celebrating DC Emancipation Day. I'm the author of that legislation that created DC Emancipation Holiday.
10 seconds.
And we talk about, did not talk about the big elephant in the room, is the guy down there at the White House. And I can tell you right now, I will not negotiate in fear, yet I will not fear to negotiate. And we need to make sure that 3 things are non-negotiable: home rule, DC autonomy, and the pursuit of statehood is non-negotiable. And at the end of the day, it's about 700,000 residents, and to continue delivering for our residents and for our children. And bottom line is our children deserve to have free tuition at the University of the District of Columbia, and they also deserve to get entry-level jobs upon graduating from high school with the DC government. Thank you all very much. Vincent Orange. Check out orangeformayor.com. If I can't be your first choice, I must be your second choice. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank our host for having this meeting. It gave me a chance to wear my Ron Brown t-shirt. If you don't know Ron Brown, the College Prep Academy for Young Men of Color in the District of Columbia. It is in my part of town, so I'm very proud of Ron Brown. Shout out to Dr. Courtney Gibbs. She's doing an amazing job with our young men of color and preparing them for school. They have great outcomes at Ron Brown, and our young men love that school. Y'all can clap for Ron Brown. They love that school. They're cool not going to school with girls. They like being focused. So I just want to just kind of bring this back since we were talking about young men of color. And also, shout out to Washington Latin. I love any school that has a lunch cleanup team that consists of students. Can we replicate that in all schools? They don't want to clean up their rooms, but let them do this. Great. So thank you. So and thank you everyone for coming. I'm here to talk. YaidaForDC.com. God bless you.
Thank you again to all the hosts of this. I want to say that I've talked about a lot of roles I've served, from attorney to council member, but my greatest role is being Pierce James George's mom, which I became 17 months ago. Now, I was a fierce fighter for education, as you all know, in 2021 when I first got to that council, and my first legislation was digital equity for all. And then I fought to make sure we had safe routes to school for all of our students. And I fought to fund the Pay Equity Fund for earned income tax credit and for our childhood educators. I've shown up to our oversight hearings with fidelity and care, even when I had a baby in my hand at night at 11 o'clock, however long those hearings went. And this conversation and this election is so important because I need you to understand and remember who has shown up for you and who will continue to show up for you, and how we can show up together for our students. And for me, it's about, I am running to put people first. And putting people first in this moment for our education is building on what we have accomplished to accomplish more for our students and for our families. And that is by centering and working alongside everyone in this room for an education system where no matter the student, no matter the zip code, they have access to excellent education throughout our city. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to growing and learning more with you. Thank you.
All right, a little over time. A little over budget on the time, but thank you to the candidates and to everybody for coming out, and obviously don't forget to vote, and let's keep improving education in DC.